Aloha Manga Club. It's been some time since my last manga recommendation video, so I decided to comb through my shelves and pick out a series that just stood out for me. And today, that was Zombie Powder by Kubo Tite. Now, for me, this is his absolute best, most forgotten work. Granted, he's really only published 2 complete series, and this one finished after 4 volumes and 27 chapters. Now, it was started on August 2nd of 1999, and the final chapter was published on February 28th of 2000. It was not a long-running series by any means, but it was an absolute forebearer for Bleach. Let me know if you see any of the parallels here. Our main character is referred to as the Black Shinigami. He has an over-the-top sword that is called useless by those he fights against. One of his compatriots is a smart, bespectacled man who uses ranged weapons. If you're seeing the parallels that I am laying down, you know that this is the absolute forerunner and the ideas that helped culminate into Bleach. Now, with Zombie Powder, it did set itself apart in a few ways. However, it was not very well received. In fact, it received a 3 out of 5 rating, which is not the greatest. Again, it's not worst, but it's average at best. In fact, Anime News Network kind of insulted it on the regular and said it wasn't that good. Well, I'm here to change your mind and really dive into what sets this series apart. So there are possible spoilers for the story ahead, so if you're not looking forward to that, just know I highly recommend reading it. It's very short, and it's gonna leave you wanting more. So let's dive into spoiler territory. Now, the story of Zombie Powder follows our MC, Gamma Akatubi. I can never say his last name, but this guy right here. If you notice, he has some metal across his face, and if you really take a closer look, you can see that one of his hands is all black, and it is covered with metal, basically hammered into his flesh. Now, this was done for a few different reasons. One, I believe that Kubo thought it just looked absolutely dope. And second, this is so he can handle the Rings of the Dead, the main moving piece for this story, the collection of these things to either gain eternal youth, immortality, or to bring those back from the dead. And that leads us on to our second character, Elwood. Now, Elwood is a young man that we are following the journey of, and I believe that if the series had continued on past Volume 4, he would have transitioned from the sidekick character to a main character, and actually a very good fighting character, because as we reach Volumes 1, 2, 3, 4, he becomes more proficient with his weapons, and he actually learns how to defend himself in the best way possible. Now, Elwood wants to bring his sister back from the dead, where we know that Gamma wants to actually attain eternal youth. Like I said, not the most original story, but that's not what this story is about. This series is about violence. Unequivocal, ridiculous, over-the-top, savage violence. We open up with the very first few chapters, and honestly, this is what sets it apart from Bleach for me. It is, again, very stylistic, much to Kubo's usual thing, but it's also stripped down. There's not too much in the background. There's just focusing on the characters and the action, and it is very kinetic in the way that you follow this series and follow the action. You don't have to be reading it to appreciate the fight scenes. They are very, again, you take out all the background, and it's just the main characters with the things that they will be interacting with. There's nothing useless, nothing is wasted, and he does his typical thing, Tite does, of introducing some humor during these really over-the-top emotional scenes. Now, in the first few chapters, we actually see Elwood kill a man with knives to the face because the leader of a gang picked him up by the head and used him as a shield to block Elwood's knives. We also see Gamma light up his sword, turn it on, and cut the main bad guy, the first chapter, in half. Not even knocking him out, not doing the Vash the Stampede non-violent thing, just straight up cuts the dude down the middle, and it's everything I wanted it to be. There was no pompous back and forth talking with Gamma. He stood there, took a few hits, and just demolished him. And that was the intro to what I believe was a great way to go. There are just so many ways that the fights are introduced to the public. You get the good guy versus the bad guy because their ideals are different, and they're both cool looking, they're both dope, and they all have their own sense of fun. Now, there are a few downsides to this. First of all, the series ended after Volume 4, after Chapter 27, and this is because our man Kubo Tite was going through a very emotional, depressive state while he was creating this. This was his first big weekly series, and I honestly think that if it had been monthly or bi-weekly, he would have been better suited. And I think that if he had a different editor and had more experience in the past, this series again would have continued on for longer. Because Kubo himself has stated that he strongly, vehemently was following everything that his editor told him to do. He didn't use his own ideas, he utilized what the man in charge of getting everything to Shonen Jump was telling him to do, and he said that that put a lot of stress on him, and he was not enjoying the process. So shame on you, editor, first of all. Second of all, if you are not used to this kind of stripped down style, you're not gonna like it very much. There is not a lot of beauty to look at in the backgrounds. This isn't a bright, expressive world like One Piece or Naruto. In fact, even Bleach has a little bit better backgrounds, and that's saying something. But the world itself does feel lived in. You can see people traveling from town to town. They're used to the violence and the destruction around them. It's not new, it's not shocking. All that it is just a way for the characters to go from set piece to set piece to set piece. But these set pieces still feel alive. Again, they're not vibrant, they're dirty. This is a weird West setting with magic, mysticism, swords, guns, everything in between that can make you believe that everything could have happened. Now, I say that this series ends on a cliffhanger because we leave Elwood to train for a while and Gamma goes off on his own, and that's where it stops. And when I read that as a child, my mind was blown. I was like, oh dude, when's the 5th Takuban coming out? And I was told that it was not, and I got so upset that I forgot about this series. I didn't originally want to add it to my collection until I started flipping through the very first volume again and realized my love for this forerunner to Bleach. Again, there are even more parallels. In fact, if you take a look at Gamma and you take a look at Grimmjow, they look pretty similar. White hair, thing on the face, what do you know? Now, if I was going to rate this series, give it a ranking, I'm going to give it a solid 7 out of 10 One Pieces. Because if you're in for a violent romp that you do not need to think about, this is where I would go. If you have read this series or love it, let me know in the comments down below. If you like manga and anime related content, don't forget to subscribe for more. And as always, for everyone new and old, welcome and welcome back. It's your boy Lohali, and I'll see you next video.